All right, next is going to be some commands and some things you can do on your Cisco IOS that's going to save you a ton of time. Here are some shortcuts about the Cisco equipment and how you can navigate Cisco's IOS much easier. So I've got the switch pulled up, and the first one I'm going to cover is the Control Z or Control C. If you hit Control C or Control Z, it's going to bring you back to the privilege exec mode. Even if you're buried through many different sub modes within there, it's going to bring you back to this privilege exec mode. So let me just give you an example. If I'm going to just jump into, as a simple way of doing this, into the global configuration mode. So I'm going to type in configure terminal. I'm in the global configuration mode. I hit Control C, it brings me back, and then here I'm back in the global configuration mode, and I'm going to hit Control Z and it brings me back. So those are two ones that can bring you back to that privilege exec mode. So another is I don't actually have to type out the full command. So let's say I'm going into the global configuration mode. I don't need to type in configure terminal. I don't need to type in the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is type in partial. Maybe I do conf and then hit tab, and it autofills the rest of the word out for me. And terminal, I type in term, and then once again, it fills out the rest of the word. Now, one question you might ask is how many letters do I need to type in before the tab works and it autofills it out? And the answer to that is as many as it takes to make it a unique command. So I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm going to clear this out first of all, and I'm just going to type in how many commands start with C. So C and then question mark. It's going to show me all the commands that start with C. And I notice that configure is in here, of course, and it is a CON, but so is connect. So 3 letters is not enough for the Cisco IOS to know what you're trying to say for this particular one. 4 letters is. So I can actually just type in CONF, and it knows when I hit tab to fill in the rest of it. So then I have terminal. How much of the commands here start with T? So I hit the T question mark, and I see it's only terminal. So all I really need to do here is just have the T, and then I hit tab, and it's all going to auto-populate, auto-fill the rest of that. And then I can hit enter, and then I go in there. I'm going to hit Control Z to go back again, and I'm back again. So there is the. I can use the tab to autofill a command. And actually, I don't even need to use the autofill. So what I can actually do is rather than typing out conf and then hitting tab, I could just leave it as conf. And rather than typing out terminal or hitting T and pressing tab, I just do T. And then I hit conf T, and now I'm in the global configuration mode. So that is a shortcut. I can hit the tab in order to autofill it in, or I could just leave it blank as long as it's enough characters to specify one and only one command. The Cisco IOS will know exactly, the device is going to know what it is that you're trying to type. All right, so there I've kind of jumped in and out of these. Let me go back to, I'm going to go back, so I'm going to hit Control Z here. I'm going to go back. I'm going to do I had a command earlier here I'm going to show the running config. So it's going to populate this out with running config, and I'm going to show, and this is stemming from one of my earlier videos where I kept hitting the up key, and then I hit the backspace key to go earlier and change something. So this is a shortcut that if you need to go and you basically want the same command every time, but you want to make little variations, changes with it, then you can bring that command, use that history to bring that command back up. So I use the up arrow, and then you can use the left and right arrows to scroll through that line and edit that line. So for instance, maybe I want to delete the word begin and say include instead. I can do that. That is using the arrow keys to go back and forth through this line. You can also use Control B and F to do the same thing. So Control B goes back, Control F goes forward. I also can use Control A to go to the beginning of the line, or Control E to go to the end of the line. So I can scroll to the right to the beginning of the line or right to the end of the line. So that's the Control A and Control E. All right, I don't really need this command, so I'll get rid of it there. Okay, so in that, I executed this command, and I did it within the privilege exec mode because it's a privilege exec mode command. A lot of the show commands, if not most of the show commands, are. But let's say I'm in the configure terminal. So I'm in the global configuration mode. Let's say that I want to do a show command. So I do a show running -config. I hit enter, and it has a problem with this. And it has a problem because the show running config is not a command that can be done in the global configuration mode. So another shortcut with this is to append the word do in front of this. The word do allows us to execute a command in the higher modes that it would be in the privilege exec mode. So this show running config is a privilege exec mode command. It doesn't work in the global configuration mode. And so I append the word do to it, and now I hit enter, and now it does it. This can save you a ton of time. Rather than having to go back to that privilege exec mode every time to run these show commands, you can do it from anywhere else in those sub modes. One other command that I'm going to explain, but I'm not going to actually demo it, is the Control-Shift-6. Control-Shift-6 actually breaks the sequence. So let's say you've typed something in and your router is doing, or your device is doing something, and you need to stop it from doing whatever it's doing. That's what Control-Shift-6 is. Sometimes what will happen is you'll type in a word and it doesn't recognize it as a command, so it thinks that you're trying to look up a DNS record, and so it'll go out and start trying to look for that DNS record. And then you say, no, that's not what I wanted. Then Control-Shift-6 will break that. Or let's say you're in the middle of a trace route or a ping and you realize, okay, I need to either change this or I've got the information that I need. I need to break out of this. Control-Shift-6 will break you out of that sequence. So that's another thing that can help you out. So there's just a few shortcuts that can really help you out along the way and make your job at programming these devices much easier. All right, this next one that I'm going to cover is really not a shortcut, but it's something that's annoying that I find, and that is sometimes the information will be spit out onto your screen and it will mess up your commands. I'll show you what I mean. If I go into the global configuration mode and then I exit out of this, it's going to pop up with a little information on what has happened, and so various things on the router will show up with some sort of log onto your console. Now this is okay, it doesn't hurt anything. There's nothing wrong with what it's displaying, but the problem is sometimes if you're typing out a command, your command ends up getting on several lines. If you were to hit enter, it doesn't affect the way your device functions. It's still going to execute the command just fine. It's just that it's hard for me to determine what commands I've typed in when it starts getting split up like that. Hey, like my videos? If you could hit that like button, that really helps me out. So let's cover how to turn these off and how to turn them back on in case in case you actually want to have this logging show up on your console. So by default, this is on. So I'm going to go into the global configuration mode and I'm going to type in no logging console. And then what that will do is those logs are not going to be presented on the console, and I'm on the console right now. So now when I hit exit, it doesn't show up. And real simple, if I decide later on that I want to be able to see those logs and I want them to display, then I can just go into, once again, the global configuration mode and then type in logging console, hit enter, and now it's turned back on. So if I exit out of that, it's going to show up again. So this shows a lot of different type of information. That's why you may want to have it on for things like troubleshooting. But for the purposes here, it just kind of doesn't really work well with my demo. So I'm going to keep it off here, and you can choose whether you want it on or off.